News 3. Coming up next is the final industry panel discussion of CXO 2020. At this panel, we are honored to be joined by 3 sustainability leaders who will be discussing and sharing insights on extending business lifespan and finding opportunities amidst the speed of industrial revolution. Our first guest panelist is the Senior Managing Director and Head of Group Sustainability at CIMB. Aside from being the leading Southeast Asian universal bank, one of the largest Asian investment banks, and one of the world's largest Islamic banks, Luanne Sieh is responsible for transforming CIMB into a leader in sustainable finance and responsible banking in Asia. Our second guest panelist is the founder of the Holstein Milk Company, a company that has revitalized Malaysia's dairy industry since 2008. Mr. Tuan, which has no prior experience in the agricultural sector, demonstrated that innovation and a willingness to take risks can lead to operational excellence and business success. Mr. Loy and his company is now a force to be reckoned with within the fresh milk category and a key player in Malaysia's aspirations to be self-sufficient and a hub for innovation and production. And our third guest panelist is Head of Group Sustainability at Sime Darby Plantation, the largest producer of certified sustainable palm oil globally. Rashyid Anwarudin has spoken at various international public forums covering areas such as human rights, social performance, deforestation, sustainable supply chains, smallholder and transparency and disclosures. Lastly, but not least, our panel moderator is Andrew Chan, Consulting and Sustainability Climate and Change Leader of PwC Malaysia. You might have remembered him as our first keynote speaker of the day. This is definitely a power-packed panel. If you guys have any comments or any questions or any impressions, please do leave it in the comment section in the chat box below. Comment section below or in the chat box below. So I'm going to hand it over to Andrew. The panel is getting ready and we'll be back in just a short while, so please stay tuned.
Well, welcome back, and welcome to my panelists. Thank you so much for making the time available to share your views with us this morning. So we have 45 minutes for the panel, so we're going to jump into the questions without much ado. And just to note that we will also take questions from the audience. We will try and get through as many as we can, just so that you hear the perspectives from the panel here. So if I just ask a question to all 3 of you first, just to set context to our audience out there. But first of all, could you just explain how sustainability is considered within your respective organizations? For example, is it fully integrated all the way through the management team and operations, or is it considered an additional element as part of your operations? Let's start with Luanne.
Hi, thanks, Andrew. So sustainability is part of our core strategy. As part of our Forward 23 strategy, we've got 5 strategic pillars, and sustainability is one of the 5. So it's as important as customers, as our people, as technology. So it's right up there. It's not something that we do on the side. It is also fully integrated into all aspects of our business, not just what we do ourselves, but throughout the operations, as well as in the business that we do with our clients. So this is something that it cannot be done on the side. It needs to be really part of the strategy in order for it to really work.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from Mr. Loy.
Yeah, I think in our context as Holstein Milk Company, ours is basically should be viewed as a fully integrated dairy company. In our business, we actually do dairy farming, and then we also go on to produce most important, safe and nutritious food as well. And along the line, I think we also need to do brand building to get the Malaysian to resonate our brand on who we are. And I think the sustainability aspect of it is like all across the whole chain of our value chain, that we will want to continue to create value and ensures that everything that we do it in a sustainable manner. I think that's our objective here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Loy. And finally, Rashyid for Sime Darby.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So, from our context, we at CIMB Darby Plantation, we actually operate in a very interesting industry. So we are the largest producer of certified sustainable palm oil in the world, and palm oil itself is an industry which has a lot of scrutiny from all of our stakeholders. But what's more important for us, is that all of our stakeholders demand us to be responsible in all of our operations, within our operation itself and throughout our global supply chain. And the most important thing for us is basically the demand of sustainable palm oil from our customers. So our customers are asking for it. Our shareholders have started to start asking about how we are embedding and implementing responsible agriculture practices, and also our other stakeholders as well, such as the NGOs, even our employees as well.
Okay, fantastic. Maybe I can just come back to Mr. Loy and then Luanne, just on that final point that Rashyid shared. What is actually driving the consideration of sustainability in your respective businesses?
I think for Holstein Milk Company, our key sustainability driver is the ability to produce more fresh milk. So I think that remains something that is a vast opportunity for us in Malaysian context, because not many people realize that Malaysia don't really have much of a fresh dairy ingredient. So if you go to supermarket, you realize that a lot of it are still imported and either being reconstituted from powders and things like that. So I think that is something that we think that we want to continue to focus on to ensure that we did it sustainably and producing more fresh milk from Malaysia. Yeah.
Okay, so very much the purpose of the company is integrated with sustainability.
Yeah, correct. I think that's our purpose. Our mission is to make sure that we continue to produce more fresh milk for fellow Malaysian. Yeah, that's basically our mission. Yeah.
Thank you. And Luanne for CIMB.
So for us, the initial trigger, and so before that, we'd been doing kind of CSR and philanthropy for many years through CIMB Foundation. But when we talk about sustainability in the business sense, we're really talking about, what are the products and services you have in everything that you do. Are you being fair to people? Are you being fair to customers, to suppliers, and to the environment, right? So in this more holistic context, the initial trigger for sustainability was really our foreign shareholders, especially the European investors, institutional investors, and they were asking us hard questions about, what are our lending policies? What do we take into account? So that was the main trigger that got everyone's attention, including the CEO and the board. And from there, we started, asking around. So we did a materiality study. We started asking our suppliers, asking our employees, and hey, it turned out it was actually something that all our employees wanted as well. And that is one of the reasons why it's so integrated into our strategy now. And of course, the customers. This was only about 2 years ago. And since then, we've started taking it really seriously. And we've even changed our, company tagline. So our company is now about helping customers and society. Not about being the most profitable bank in the world, although we should.
Getting there. An additional KPI. So if I could ask the next question again to all of you. The earlier topic that I shared was around innovation and sustainability. Could you share how your business has seen innovations because you've been taking on a sustainability lens? Let's start with Rashyid and then work towards Luanne.
Okay, so if you look at the industry itself, there is a lot of challenge around the issue of deforestation and the sort of allegations that the industry has around issues of deforestation within industry. So moving on from now, with the additional requirements and additional sort of tools and methodologies that we need to put in place to sort of expand into new areas to get more oil. One of the things which our management has sort of acknowledged is that it's going to get more and more difficult for us to do expansion. So one of the key sort of things which we've sort of moved on from now is that we've moved from land bank expansion sort of mode into efficiency mode to try and get as much oil as possible from existing land that we have. So one of the key things that we've sort of developed in the last few years is essentially higher yielding planting materials, and these are being developed internally by our R&D team, which applies genomics technology. And what we are seeing is that we can get more oil from our existing land up to 10 to 15%. And the sort of more oil that we can get from our existing land, it reduces the sort of stress that that is on the company to expand into new land to actually get more oil. So those are some of the one example of innovation that has been driven because of sustainability challenges.
Okay. There's another one I've heard you share before also about satellite technology. Do you want to just briefly mention what you've been doing there?
So another sort of issue that is quite hot within this region is basically the issue of fire and haze. So there's a lot of allegations around the palm oil industry being a large contributor to to the fire and haze, especially within this region, right? So one of the things that we've actually sort of innovated ever since the 1980s. It started off with number one, we have a zero burning policy since the 1980s, and then because of that we've implemented infrastructure in place, putting in place emergency response teams on the ground if there's any fires, and quite recently in the past 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, we've implemented what we call as hotspot monitoring technology, where we utilize satellite monitoring systems to sort of monitor our land bank across the world, and 5 kilometers outside of our land bank as well, to monitor any hotspots, which may occur in our sort of operations. So what that enables us to do is to monitor the effectiveness of our zero burning policy, and in the event there are any fires, I will get notified immediately, and what's going to happen is then the estate manager on the ground would need to then do an on-the-ground investigation within 24 hours to see if there's any fires there, and to take corrective action. So, and all of this is actually, we've made it publicly available. So any hotspots which are identified within our operations, we've put it on our website. We have a hotspot monitoring website, and then it says whether a hotspot has been identified, and the sort of details of our investigation on the ground, just to ensure transparency of our operations. Fantastic.
Now let's hear from Mr. Loy. So a lot of people say, well, sustainability and big innovations are only the realm of really large companies, whether CIMB, Darby or CIMB. But yourself as an entrepreneur, as SME business owner, I think you've also introduced a lot of innovation into your business as well, from taking a sustainability lens.
I think for us, I think sustainability in dairy farming goes beyond just producing the fresh milk. Number one, I think we view, because the dairy farming in the tropics, in fact, it's very, very challenging. So for us, we begin with to have to find the right genetic, for example, for us to do our dairy farming. Now, I think in terms of cow comfort, is also another things that we are looking at, that we wanted to do it in a more sustainable manner, that instead of, for example, the cows are traditionally farmed on the concrete flooring, for example, and now we introduce compost barn, for example. So what we're trying to achieve really, because our cow poo a lot, there's a problem as well, and we need to work very hard to ensure that that a zero discharge farming is also important for us as well. So this is where I think a lot of effort been put in a sense that how do we actually manage those waste and have them created, become a wealth for us, for example. So those manures are all being composted along the way, and they're broadcast back to the field, and then we do vermiculture, for example, and to ensure that all these have been converted into a very organic fertilizer, and in return produce a very healthy grass and productive pasture to in return feed our cows. So I think you can imagine, I think we spend a lot of efforts to ensure that 300 acres of our paddocks are all being irrigated through a few 100,000 liters of those slurries that comes out, and you're actually giving back to the soil, not just taking out things from the soil. But I think we need to learn how to coexist with the nature, in a sense that today, if you want to find a worm on the soil, you probably have had a hard time to go and dig around. You probably can't find them. So I think these are all the nature that we're reintroducing back, to make sure that our soils are healthy, and then continue to produce a healthy, a good quality grass for our dairy animals as well. Yeah.
So just a quick follow-up to that. So some people will say taking natural approaches costs more money. From your experience, does it cost more money or versus chemical fertilizers?
I think in our context, the efforts that we put in over the years, I think is very rewarding. First begin with is, let's say, for example, we could have used maybe for the efforts that we put in all the compost fertilizer, the manure slurry to irrigate our grass and all this sort of thing. Have we don't do things like that, I think we run a brief number. We probably have to use about 1.3 million kgs of chemical fertilizer just to make sure that we get the grass out of it. So in this case, we not only save money, I think in terms of, by reducing the chemical fertilizer, you also reduce all those chemical leaching, which is very toxic to the soils as well. So I think that is how we actually interpret. I don't think so that, if you want to do it sustainably in our context, we are actually saving money rather than costing more. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, Luanne, finance provider, how have you innovated your products and services?
So products and service, on the products and services front, which is, I guess, the usual thing when you talk about, innovation, we work really closely with our business units to try and understand, what do our stakeholders want? What are the issues that they're trying to solve, and what are they trying to achieve? And through there, we've managed to launch quite a number of products. So for example, one of the things that we've done, I think, starting the beginning of this year, is what we call sustainability-linked loans. That's for businesses, essentially for businesses that have that want to do sustainability, and we could agree a number of targets with them. And if they achieve those targets on a year-on-year basis, they get an interest rate a rebate or a reduction from us. So in that way. Oh yeah. So in that way, we we encourage our customers to become better together with us. Now on the individuals front, we also try and encourage our individual customers to live greener. For example, we've got better rates for any green or hybrid car that you buy, or if you've got a GBI certified house, there's a discount on the loan as well. So yeah, we're trying to do a lot of things. We're launching a responsible card as well. So yeah. Now, however, I would say that on the product front, service front, yes, but also internally, when Andrew asked me about innovation, I was thinking, okay, products and services, but internally we've changed almost every aspect of our business, from how we look at our suppliers, how we evaluate our supply chain, to how we conduct meetings. In almost everything that we've done, we've had to rethink how we do things. Yeah, and actually one I wouldn't say innovation, but it's very, very different. When we look at sustainability at CIMB, we share with the other banks. We share with the rest of the industry. It is a pre-competitive space because we're not doing this for selfish gains. We're doing this for the wider society and for future generations. So I don't know if you count that as an innovation, but to us, that's very different.
Fantastic. So partnerships is a big one there, and you've got your Cooler Earth Summit coming up again this year, fairly soon. So let's. I mean, you've talked about the products and services, so that's quite clear, and I saw interest from Mr. Loy and Rashyid. So if they haven't, they might be looking for a conversation. But what specifically have you seen in terms of business benefits? So, for example, for Luanne, have you seen the actual increase in new customers coming to CIMB? How's it impacted you on a business perspective?
So, when we launched sustainability-linked loans, we had a lot of interest from customers, not just to get the rebate, but a lot of them were very curious about, what is this about? What do we actually need to do? Is it going to cost a lot of money? Exactly the questions that you asked. Yes. There are a lot of new conversations that we are managing to have with our clients about this, and for a lot of them, it's very surprising because, hey, you're a bank, and why do you care about sustainability?
Thank you. And Mr. Lloyd, could we hear how you've seen business benefits from this?
I think in terms of how we actually perceive sustainability, I think especially when I think relate to brand building beyond product, I think it is not just the aesthetic part of it. It is also how the consumer perceive our brand. So I think that is very important that we must be seen to be a responsible company on how we actually produce our product. With all these animal rights and all this, how these cows have been treated and animals are treated, your employees and along the value chain. I think that is something that we are very conscious that we must be able to withstand that kind of scrutiny as years goes by. So I think I think the sustainability focus is something that we will continue to take it very seriously in the way that we run the business. Yeah.
I think you've also mentioned that you feel that the milk tastes better coming from happier cows. I mean, there is a chocolate company out there that also says happy cows has better tasting chocolate. So I'm pretty sure all of us are also consumers of your product. But have you done taste tests to say consumers are actually coming to you because of the taste?
No, Andrew, I think that question is very true. We seriously believe that, first to begin with, you must have a happy employees that looks after your cow. And then those dairy animals has to be very happy. The cow have to be happy, honestly, because the physiology of the cow, if they are not healthy, for example, they will never actually give you a cup of yummy milk. So I think that is something that in our farm, I think the passions of looking after, make sure that our cow comforts are there, and a healthy and happy cow naturally produce a better milk, in the sense that if you say, in terms of milk composition, the higher fat content, the higher protein content, as a result, the consumer can taste the difference, then you have a happy customer as well. So I think that is very important, that along the chain that everybody is happy to ensure that we get a cup of fresh, yummy milk. Yeah.
I think my youngest son is one of your favorite.
Hey, thank you.
Rashyid, for CIMB Darby?
Yeah, for us, when it comes to sustainability, I mean, we see that as a central pillar of the sort of product that we sell. Essentially, we're a company which, at the end of the day, we grow, produce, and sell palm oil. And the way that we sort of position ourselves as the largest sustainable palm oil producer in the world is that, we sell to our customers, responsibly produced palm oil. And that, for us, that is how we are differentiating ourselves. So if you look at most of the large customers, most of the large buyers of palm oil globally now, they all of them have very strict guidelines around, responsible sourcing. And the way that we see it, it sort of differentiates ourselves from our competitors.
So, in the early stages where we saw first movers to sustainable palm oil, they might say this slight price premium, but nowadays the producers say they don't get a price premium. So is there actual business benefit to you from producing and going to the cost of going for RSPO certification, when some might say we could sell to India or China non-certified palm oil and still get the same price? So are you actually seeing financial and business benefits from doing that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if the question is, does implementing sustainability cost more? It does. But that's a very narrow viewpoint of it. if you look at it from a wider viewpoint, the sort of business benefits that we get, on top of some premiums that some of our customers give us, is the longer term relationships that we build with our customers. And with the longer term relationships, we can then start developing longer term partnerships and sort of longer term solutions with them, where we can then supply to them what we call specialty products, so things which are of higher value. And the way that you see it is, the sort of customers that we have globally, sustainability is like, this is like hygiene. You need to have it. And then once you have sustainable, responsibly produced palm oil, then we can talk about how we can have better relationships to build higher value products together.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask one additional question and then see what questions we have coming in from the audience as well, just to give a chance to field some of those questions. I think if we start with Luanne, what has been the actual response been to your sustainable products and services? So I saw Ian's prick up just now. We talked about the sustainable linked loans and reducing interest rates. Have you had much uptake on that? Obviously, without disclosing commercial information.
Yeah, so I'm a bank, so I can't talk about any of our customers, but let's just say, yes, a lot of interest. Look out for some announcements coming out soon. I think that's all I can say.
Okay, I'm going to assume the announcements come at the Cooler Earth Summit.
Yes.
Then. Okay.
Thank you, Andrew. That reminds me. Yes. So there will be a couple of announcements at the Cooler Earth Summit. So it's open to our clients and to the public as well. So especially for businesses, please do come and join us, Cooler Earth CIMB.
Okay, little plug to continue the sustainability agenda. So, Mr. Loy and Rashyid, as finance takers then, from the likes of whether it's CIMB or others, what have you seen? And Rashyid, you mentioned also investor pressure earlier and interest. What have you seen so far from the finance community? This is something a lot of companies around the region are saying. We're hearing finance companies are willing to give us better deals and invest for more sustainable companies, but are we really seeing that happen? Mr. Lawyer, start with you. Are you actually seeing that demand materialized into action?
Yeah, I think the first time I come to heard about this ESG was about 2 years ago as well. The first thing, my reaction when those financial investor was evaluating us, I say, what is this ESG? I got no clue what it is. And then we only begin to realize that I think going forward, any companies that, with the view that if you wanted to, as you grow, these are something that the environmental, social governance things that you can't ignore it, this fund that comes in, they want to make sure that they invest in a company that's socially responsible, farming in such a way that in a sustainable manner, and you have a good governance. So I think it goes beyond just making money for yourself. You also need to be mindful that what are you impacting your communities around you. So I think all these things stacks out. And if you want to look at, I think these finance people will be able to influence a lot of decision on how this company need to be run, because otherwise, you might not get funding from them if you don't, those boxes don't tick off. The workers' welfare, for example, animal welfare. It's beyond. In our case, I think I think after we learned that, we actually make very conscious effort, and some of it we actually measure it, how we need to do it to prepare ourselves in the years to come when we actually, especially consumer, if you are perceived a brand that are irresponsible, consumer have got a choice. I don't have to buy a fresh milk, I don't have to buy a yogurt, for example. So I think all these things we have to be very mindful, and I think we have to really address those things and to make sure that the brand resonate well with our value as well. Yeah.
So it's a case of listening to what your stakeholders are asking for and then putting the right metrics in place so that you can share and engage with them?
I think for stakeholders, I think whatever our investors are looking at, for example, I think there's there are a couple of things that they will measure. First, of course, you're looking at the investment return, but there's only one part of it. As how the company treat the other people along your value chain, for example, whether it's your employees or the communities that you're in. I think, for example, we go into do rural manufacturing, for example, because our farms are isolated. We wanted to create opportunity for the rural people. And those processing plant that we put out, if I tell you about Muazzam Shah, I think maybe 9 out of 10 never heard where is this place, in Pahang. So by doing things like that, I think it also gives the rural people more opportunities, a high value job, a QA manager, a technician, or engineering, for example. So I think all these things, I think the stakeholders wanted to see that, the companies are responsible. You're also creating value for others as well, not only just a financial return. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Rashyid, given Sime Darby's largest producer of certified palm oil, does that mean your cost of financing is like one of the lowest around?
Depends, because I guess for us, the way that we see it when it comes to our engagements, especially with the financial sector, what started off probably like around 10 years ago, the sort of discussions that we've had with the sort of shareholders and investors, it started off with the European and Americans, and they've started off with asking the very basic questions around our ESG performance, and throughout the years, the sort of maturity of the sort of discussions that we've had with them have been in such a way that we can then have specific, detailed conversations with them, with the analysts, about specific detailed sort of issues. And what we've seen, the trend recently, is that the sort of discussion has sort of moved to the sort of regional financial service providers as well. So your CIMBs, your Maybanks have also started to sort of ask similar questions and have similar conversations. And what we're also seeing now is that there are a lot more sort of products which are coming into place. Things like your sustainability linked loans that you mentioned, sustainability bonds, green bonds, those sort of things.
And could you just touch upon the pension funds, because you got very big long-term investors. Are they also putting in requirements specifically, or are they yet to kind of?
Yeah, for the local pension funds, my understanding is that they already have teams in place to start looking into these sort of ESG related issues, and then for the past 2 to 3 years, we've already started very detailed engagements with them, and whenever there are any sort of issues which come out in the press, or any sort of stakeholder who alleges some issues within our operations, they are one of the sort of stakeholders who have been engaging with us to understand our position more.
Thank you, Rashyid. And Luanne, let's just close off with you. Back to the finance provider.
Yeah. So you know what Rashyid said about the investors asking questions about what's going on. It is a general thing that we are seeing across all investors and banks, and so for example, the large funds like Co-op PPF, Khazanah, they have signed on to the Principles for Responsible Investment, the PRI, just as we have signed up to PRB, Principles for Responsible Banking. Now, that is good, but that is voluntary. Also, what we're seeing is that the central banks in the region, like Bank Negara, they have joined up with NGFS, the Network for Greening of Financial Services, and Bank Negara is now very much driving the climate change agenda with the lenders in Malaysia, and they're actually developing a taxonomy. And at some point, they've put this up for discussion, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they're going to ask all the banks to tag their assets. So every lending asset that we have, every loan that we give, is it green or is it brown? And for us to do that, we are going to have to ask our customers. So very soon, all the banks, because this could become a regulation. Now Bank Negara is encouraging it, but And we've seen for other central banks, they are starting to make it a requirement. So although it is voluntary now, it will, I think companies that are irresponsible will very soon find themselves not being able to access capital, either from investors or lenders. So I would say, start now.
Very good point. Although, as I mentioned, in Southeast Asia, we like a bit more of the stick approach than the carrot. So maybe a bit of carrot, and then we might see the stick coming in, right? So we have a question from the audience from Mohammed Harris. What's your advice to companies that want to embark on the sustainability journey now? What's a good starting point? I guess more from a practical perspective, where can they start? Rashyid, would you like to share views?
Sure. I guess from our point of view, the most important thing to consider is, this term called materiality, right? Understand what's material to your company. It's actually quite simple. Number one, you need to understand, be very clear what your business is. For us, it's actually quite a simple business. We actually grow, produce, and sell palm oil. And then after that, you just need to understand, based on all of the issues, what exactly how these issues exactly impact your business. So how does sustainability related issues impact how we grow our oil or how we sell our oil? And that's basically the impact of business. And then the second one is start listening to your stakeholders. So your customers, to your investors, what are the things which concern them the most? And once you sort of understand, these sort of things which impact your business and also are of utmost importance to your stakeholders, that's a starting point for you to say, okay, this is where I need to start working on.
Fantastic, good advice. Luanne or Mr. Loy, anything else you want to add in terms of responding to Harris's question?
I think to me, for any company that when you set out to do, first I think you have to have a value, or how do you define your core value of your company? So in our case, for example, we are a food company. First thing, we make sure that we wanted to produce fresh milk for our customer. And all the product that we develop, for example, make sure that, they are contaminants free, no preservative, no coloring, etc. So this is one thing first, that you make sure that if you are building a brand, you have to build a customer base that actually trusts you, and that you can continue, that you can continue to grow. And the next thing is that we goes back to our question is that how do we produce those products sustainably? So I think these are all the things. So your employees, your stakeholders, the communities that you're in, all this actually adds up to actually how do you want to define yourself? I think that's very important. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Loy. Luanne, would you like to add anything? Or?
Yeah, so I think, echoing what Rashyid said, understanding what your stakeholders want and need is the most important thing, because what is sustainability in business? It is not, hugging trees. It is really about being cognizant and fair to all your stakeholders, not just your shareholders. So it is, things like listening to your suppliers, listening to your employees, to your customers. The main thing I wanted to say was, how do you start? It needs to start from the board and the top management. It needs to start somewhere senior. For us, that's where we saw the acceleration, although there was interest. So do get your senior management and board on board. You can, you can partner with NGOs, they would happily come and talk to your board, send them to sustainability conferences like ours, for example, but there's a lot of help out there.
Or talk to their finance providers to say they could get more attractive financing. Okay. Just one point I'd add to that is capability development. So as mentioned, there's a lot of resources out there, whether it's conferences, whether it's guidelines that don't cost money, that you can develop confidence, I would say. A lot of companies are afraid to talk about sustainability because you're not really sure what it is, and you might be baffled by some of the language that's used by others. So build up your confidence by just equipping some of your team on sustainability and the language of sustainability. Okay, we have a question from Kelly around just sharing insights on the disruptions with regard to sustainability of food production. Specifically, she's highlighted 290 million factory workers in China, but I assume we're just talking about being able to support the population's demand for food production in a sustainable manner. I'm going to direct that to Rashyid and Mr. Loy as being in the food sector. And I guess this links to the debate about food wastage. Are we actually producing enough food globally to support the growth of the population?
Okay, I'll try and answer this question. So, essentially, I mean, the question is about food security, and even if you were to look globally, with the increasing population globally, there will come to a point in time where there will be, enough stress in the sort of system where globally we're producing food to sort of raise flags, right? So for us, looking at sustainability as well, we also look into how we contribute to to sort of mitigating the risk of issues around food security as well. Because at the end of the day, we are a producer of palm oil, and palm oil is essentially you either consume it, and it's also an ingredient in quite a lot of food products as well. And then the way that we see it is, number one, with the sort of sustainability, how do we balance between the sort of sustainability requirements that are coming in, things like issues around deforestation, issues around climate change, rising seawater levels, and how does that impact our operations against meeting demand for increasing oil for the rising population globally as well. So that's why we're looking into trying to see how we can get as much oil from our existing sort of land bank that we have to sort of help meet the demand in the future.
Actually, Ms. Loy, if okay, I'm going to actually skip to Luanne because so we heard you talk about sustainable finance products and services, but one of the things we also talk about with finance providers is how do you look forwards to upcoming potentially new industrial sectors that you encourage and finance the growth of these sectors, whether it's a third national car or whether it's new food technologies that will support the population growth? How do you guys take that kind of forward-looking view to say we should encourage the growth of these sectors because they're good for the nation, the economy?
Absolutely. So as part of our sustainability strategy, we have a number of target SDGs, and within each of those target SDGs, we've actually identified a number of subsectors, sectors like renewable energy, energy efficiency, waste, that we specifically want to go and support. So it's called our positive impact product framework. And we are actively sending our relationship managers, our corporate bankers, to go and look for those deals. So very much on board and wanting to support those kinds of industries.
Okay. Thank you. And we've got a question from Charmaine. I think this is directed at Rashyid. How do you deal with the smallholders who are part of the B40 community, especially when the price of palm oil decreases?
The price is increasing now, but
when it decreases.
Yeah. So for us, we actually have, globally, we actually have a large smallholder program. So, and the context of smallholder sort of differs from country to country. So, just a bit to bring a bit of context, we operate our upstream operations in Malaysia, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and Solomon Islands. And for example, the sort of context in Papua New Guinea is different. So we actually have certified all of the 20,000 plus smallholders to the RSPO, the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil Certification, and we actually have a dedicated supply chain that goes into Europe, such that any sort of premiums that we get in Europe can then be trickled down to the smallholders in Papua New Guinea. In Indonesia, for example, we also have around 20 to 30,000 smallholders there as well that we actually are managing the operations for them from one extreme to another. So one of them is, they actually have the land and we actually run the operations for them, or to the other extreme where, they have the land and, they run it and we provide, capacity building for them. And we also have a program in place to get them certified to the RSPO, and we're around 50 to 60% there. In Malaysia, it's a bit different because of the way that the industry is structured. So in Malaysia itself, we deal a lot more with traders when it comes to engaging with the smallholders. So we actually have a program in place which we've started to roll out last year, where we engage with traders who bring in third-party fruits into our mills across Malaysia, and we actually then help them in their process of certification to the Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil standards. And what we do is basically we bring the Malaysian government, and then we also then provide them sort of awareness raising around this. So it's a lot of engagements with the traders to try and bring their the sort of smallholders which they collect the sort of fruits from, to sort of raise awareness and engage.
And Mr. Lloyd, just coming to you, I know that it wasn't directed at you, but you were sharing with us earlier how you engage and food production, feeding your workers on your farms, etc. Would you like to just share how you guys go about that as well?
Yeah. I think in our case, as I said, the employees are very important assets to our operation. And I used to challenge my team, I think we ourselves are farmers. And for example, in our farm, we have a factory, we have our own canteen, for example, and we give a subsidized meal for lunch or dinner for RM1. So I used to talk to my team. I say, we are farmer proper. I think, and we have the land, we have a lot of organic fertilizer. We should be able to farm a decent amount of vegetable that our own workers can eat it, And then we have a lot of ponds and reservoir that who's stopping us from raising some fish, and then those fish can actually be served in our canteen. So we have a team of different groups that, everybody go to royong a bit, pay a bit attention, and then you not only that, reduce the cost of the feeding, but you also have a very healthy food for the employees as well. So I think these are all the little things that you add up. I think in a way that, you have a happy employee. That's very important, yeah.
Just as you have happy cows as well and happy customers.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us towards the end of the panel. I'm going to ask each of you just to give any final thoughts on not necessarily sustainability and innovation, but just final thoughts around the topic of sustainability. I'd like to thank all of you again for your time here and sharing your different perspectives. We had finance provider from Luanne, we had an SME owner in Mr. Loy, and Rashyid, obviously a very big listed company. But it's good to see that sustainability doesn't just sit with the big companies, but can also deliver benefits to the smaller companies. And comforting to hear your perspectives that investors, finance providers, whilst before we were hearing a lot coming from the West, increasingly the regional FIs are getting more and more active on this and engaging and willing to give better cost of financing. If you don't find it, you know who to speak to. If you're not sure where to find her, you find her at the Cooler Earth Summit next. So with that, thank you. And just closing statements. Let's start with Rashyid and then work to Luanne.
Sure. I guess when it comes to sustainability, I mean the most important thing is understand how it impacts your business, and listen to your stakeholders, because at the end of the day, if it impacts your business and it's material to your business, usually you'll find out that you are already doing something internally about it. It's just not called sustainability.
Mr. Loy?
Now, I think in our context, I think we are farmers, and weathers are really, really important to us. So I think the climate change is very, very real. Over the years, we experienced there are seasons that we are very, very dry. We don't have enough water, and then when it rains a lot until you get flood and things like that. So I think this climate change is really real, and I think the financial investor or the consumer alike, I think they are able to play a role in a sense that whether how the company do the business? What kind of value do they have? Are they responsible? Are they not responsible? I think all these consumers have the power to actually continue to ensure that companies that do business have to do it in a sustainable manner. Whether it's whatever industry they're in, I think that is something that the people are able to contribute to create a better world. That our grandchildren, when we are not around, they inherited this world. So you make sure that they can continue to have a good earth to live with.
Okay, thank you for that. And finally, Luanne.
Well, Mr. Loy and I are kindred spirits. So, I mean, as he said, climate change is real. It is it is happening right now. Entire countries are being flooded. People are losing their homes. There's also a lot of injustice and inequality in this world. And all those are big issues, and one person can't solve it. One business, one government, one country can't solve it, but everybody needs to get into that mode of let's work together. It's such a big problem. There are so many big problems, but they're not insurmountable if we all play our part. And it's such a daunting topic, but just start somewhere. As a company, just start, for example, talking to your stakeholders or doing reporting. As an individual, there's so many things you can do too.
Thank you. So that speaks to Hafiz's question earlier, which was, where do I start, right? It's starting somewhere, anywhere is better than just waiting and not starting. So I think that's nicely summed up. So I'd like to thank all of you again. Thank you for your time and your open and honest sharing. And thank you to the staff for organizing this and focusing on this topic of sustainability. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.